All right. It's hard to see in these things. All right, everybody, welcome to the Nervous Ghost Press Open Mic Episode 7. Ghosts are lucky. We have green everywhere. Today is a day of green. Not green for envy, but green for lucky. Green for poetry, green for art, green for community. If you are viewing for the first time, I want to introduce ourselves a little bit. My name is Matthew Mejia. I'm the publisher CEO of Nervous Ghost Press, and we exist for art, by artists, and for our community. Everything that Nervous Ghost Press does is for all of us to join, to come together, to grow, and to unify through art, through healing, through trauma, compassion, pain, and everything else. I hope you're all happy, healthy, and warm, and are ready to hear some great stories, poetry, and meet new people. A lot of the people, as always, are new to myself, and it's such a cool experience. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, how some of us, we don't know each other. We've never met each other, and we get to learn about who we are, how we tick, what makes us move, what makes us think, all in real time, all together with everybody watching, and everybody watching when it's uploaded later on. Every third Saturday used to be our schedule for these open mics, but starting next month, hopefully for reals, I always try and say it, things always happen. Hopefully for real, starting next month, we're in person. The live streams will still continue, but it will no longer be virtual. And we're going to be in person in a local place. I've reached out to a couple places, so we'll see what happens. Next month is National Poetry Month, and so our open mic, our event will be a little bit different. We'll be celebrating our community, but also in conjunction with others. Remember to connect with us. Like, subscribe, comment, all those normal things. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, www.nervousghostpress.org. You can always email, reach out in any kind of way. I'll always reply. And if you want to sign up, sign up. If you have questions or you just want to chat, I'm always down to chat. After our speakers are finished, we always have a Q&A discussion. So if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask, any burning questions, any craft questions, or just, hey, how did you make that line? That line was really cool. Type it, email, text, comment, tag, whatever it is, and we'll be able to field them and respond. The discussions are always great, and we get to learn from each other. We get to communicate one-on-one in a very cool and real way, as opposed to a very manufactured type of interview style. We want to say hi to Ghost Dennis, who is unavailable to be here, but as always, he has a ghost in the Zoom chat that you'll see later on. It's Ghost Dennis, so we'll say hi to Ghost Dennis. We'll send him our luck, our ghostly luck, if that's a thing. And I gotta take these glasses, are so hard to see. Dennis is our editor-in-chief, and he will be the main editor for our current submissions journal, The Waiting Room, 0 reading fees ever. And if you need to learn more about it, www.nervousghostpress.com. You can email us about it. You can email us, ask us questions. What work are we looking for? Is it you? Is it raw? Is it real? Does it kind of speak to us as monsters, us as humans, us as things? And always, again, no reading fees ever. Just send it. We want it. We want to read it. Art, poetry, dance, choreography, philosophical inquiries to the universe, chemistry. It doesn't matter what it is. If you create it, it's art. I want to see it. I take these glasses off. All right, to get us started, I'm going to read a new poem for everybody, and then we'll jump into the real show. Oh, I have a green drink. I forgot to show you. All right, this poem is new. This is called Children of Violence. It causes loss, and God doesn't quite stop the bleeding, does it? Does it ever really change? Year and year and year out, and inside it's still the same. The streetlights change and the stop signs still push the over enthusiastic bullshit. The politician's wet dream isn't what's best for those who dream of something bigger. There's always something bigger to take away, to lose, to steal, to give to those who earn nothing but retribution. The pianist's song isn't played, yet music flows through keyholes, through doorways lit with the bones of mothers carrying infant hopes and love lost like cold sores and wounds. Will you stop the fucking bleeding once? Please, it's too much. It's years and generations too late. It's dust at this point. They hoped. They hoped. They suffered through hope and still hoped, and yet victims were taught and raised to teach more and raise more. It ends here. No more will pontification reign alongside fabricated royalties, and justice will no longer be the icing on the not your cake. You don't get any, it's for the chosen ones. The vegetables are perfectly fine for you to build up your bodies up nice and strong and do our bidding, build our buildings, raise these towers to cower under, but no, not today. These towers are mine. I can't climb alone, but I can play. And I'll play my way to the tippity top where you lay silent and decaying in sociopathic tendencies you thought were just yours. It's a free existence when chains are nothing more than what's been oppressive, compulsive, disorderly conduct is what feeds us, what hunger is driven by, and what dreams are sustained. My ancestors suffered through suffocating social experiments, and I am their bones, and their bones are mine, and their bones are mine. And their bones are what makes me, what calls me, what drives me. My bones live to break and build and scream and cry through bloodied up bodies and cold faces. Cold skin doesn't stop the nightmares. It's time. If memories would, could you stand or be bombarded by historical bombshells that don't stop fences, that won't quit my grandma's tears or steal and have steeled those who came after, who walked through the sunshine to remember their overcast birthplaces and homes, and through legislative deadbolts are nothing more than hopes and wishes, wishing to have something like they lost. Gave up their hopes and dreams and children of violence to find peaceful conclusions of historical means of death. Will you stand and prove the meaning of their breath? Dance and sing along the endings fit for curses, or sit and face the smoke, wondering why. And so that's children of violence. I think a lot of us are children of violence. Anyways, so to get us onto the For Real show, and for the reason you're all here, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today. And of course, everybody, as I introduce you, share a little bit about yourself. Let's get to know each other. Let's become a community. Let's grow. Let's be strong. Amanda.
Hi. Um, my name is Amanda Kors. I usually haunt these open mics every now and then, usually every now and then, both of those. What am I up to? I have a book coming out with Nervous Ghost Press, forthcoming. It's just a little blood. Pick it up when it comes out, please. Yeah. So I just wrote this poem today, and I finished it at 5:15 p.m. So here it goes. The pandemic in summary. It was only supposed to be 2 weeks, so you buy booze. It'll go by faster if you're drunk, you figure, like an obligatory party. Except the song playing isn't Give Me More. It's your father singing, It's the end of the world as we know it, on the HomePod. But then the weeks go by and so do the wine bottles, and suddenly it's months of your life being only as exciting as the next package to arrive in the mail. And you can't tell if that's the normal track of adulthood or a side effect of all the major historical events happening. Eventually, even your father escapes into Animal Crossing, plays it for nearly 1,000 hours before you both burn out on that too. You keep your limited supply of serotonin up by eating M&Ms before you put on your mask. So every time you talk to someone, you smell chocolate, and it's the small moment of sweetness in the deteriorating morale that litters every conversation. New body image flaws emerge on social media. Mask knee, mask breath, quarantine weight. And you see all those things in the mirror as you trim your bangs with Crayola scissors. You turn on the news, and if it was a Hallmark card, it'd be the one that says, "Get well soon," full of giving up and flaccid prayers. This time, though, they announce the masks are going away. You scoff. We did that for about 2 weeks before. But that was in the first year. Now it's calendar year 3, and 80% of the county is vaccinated, so they assume the disease can't penetrate its silicon and alabaster walls. When you start to see people's faces again, you think that this is like when English men first got to see women's ankles in public. Sure enough comes the part you've missed the least. Like clockwork, at the Target, a man says it's a shame you still chose to wear a mask because he's missing out on the beauty of your smile. The return to normalcy is really a Morse code that most of us would actually rather not tap into. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm over here pushing a bunch of buttons, and I appreciate you always sharing with us. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, there may be some scratchiness here and there that everybody hears. I can't figure out what it is, so we just have to deal with it. But Amanda, a few things is the "get well soon" line. I think a lot of people we just get it, and the return to normalcy, that the normalcy that no one wants to go back to. It kind of sucked anyways. I think that being able to articulate these things and how we feel, and everybody wants to rush back, but really it wasn't so fun anyways. And it's always nice to put everything in words. The weeks and wine bottles, that just made me think about weeks and wine bottles. Whatever that can mean to anybody. But Amanda, thank you, everybody. We'll be announcing Amanda's book soon with all the information, the release date, the reading tours, the dates, all that fun stuff. So make sure you order it. It's super cool. Can't talk about it much yet, but it's a really great collection. And thank you, Amanda, for always joining us and for sharing your work. All right, up next we have Romaine. And Romaine, good to see you for the first time ever, and share a little bit about yourself. Welcome to our little world here.
Yes, thank you. It's a cozy world. I love it. I don't know what to say about myself. So, a poet. I've been writing forever, it feels like. I'm going to read 3 poems, and the first one will be from Purgatory Has an Address, which was published last year, April 15th. So my anniversary for my book is coming up. And then 2 more short poems. I live in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm a visitor frequently of Pasadena area. And my place, that's how I heard about you guys. And without further ado, I'm gonna do my due. And I'm gonna stick with the pandemic theme that Amanda started us on. From inside a burning building. I am writing from inside a burning building. The cell phone in the corner keeps asking, how am I doing? What do I see? Does it hurt as bad as it smells? I have lost my sense of smell, but understand we must document these things because we are here and still alive. My hair is charcoal. Skin is peeling layers of tears. Scientists say the skin weeps when it is badly burned. The air tastes like tires, though I have never tasted a tire. This is how I imagine it tastes. This is what I must tell the cell phone so it has a simile to understand there are really no words to describe how it feels to be inside a burning building. There are no words to capture the sensation of walls eating you alive. I look at windows exploding, knowing they will be there tomorrow, the same time, ready to explode again. My cell phone rings, COVID is calling from a hospital bed. I cannot visit my friend whose fever is so high she is hallucinating. She says, I am sweat pouring from my eyes, yelling at me. There are stories to be written. She says, I am sorry, but I can't. She hangs up the phone. Tomorrow, she is telling me it feels good to be quarantined where the sheets are white and the quiet is eating me alive. So that's my first pandemic poem, followed by my second pandemic poem, which was published in Spectrum 30, Spectrum 30, and it's called Pandemic in the Fourth Dimension. Sisyphus is baying at the sun while I play bongos to Gil Scott-Heron's latest podcast, and the television dives into the kitchen sink. A monkey climbs up a monolith syringe, throws a bone in the air, counts to 30 on an endless loop. Kafka and I argue about directives, less than 6 feet apart, over 15 minutes together, infected, sneezes linger in the air like magic carpets. Time stands still. No wishes allowed. We know no one has the answers, but physicists and numerologists are adding up the probabilities of just how long this will last again. And my last one is, has not been published yet. It's to my son. Here we go. And it's called And This Too. My son asks, when will the world end? I say it already has, we just don't know it yet. Puzzled, he asked, how can I smell pork chops smothered in onions and green beans simmering in ham hocks and the sugar in sweet potatoes? How can I feel the small hairs on your arms when we hug? How can I see your feet swell when you are tired? How come I see me stand taller and you shrink? And my son strummed his somber guitar, locks dripping over his shoulders. How can you hear my fingers playing on these strings? I smile, glad that he remembers the burning eucalyptus candle, cleaning the air that has already gone out. So those are my three. Thank you.
Thank you, Romaine. And the image or the scent even of the burning tires, and how I think the ability of us to write, or artists, that we know what it smells like without ever smelling it. We know what it tastes like without ever tasting it. And our words can create these realities that don't yet exist but have always existed and will always exist. And as you said in a few, the again. It's always again. It's always happening and not happening over and over and over and over. And thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. Up next, we have Ashton Cynthia Clark.
Sorry. Anyway, thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you, Nervous Ghost Press, and all of my fellow artists here. My first time here. I live in the Los Angeles area now, but I'm originally from New York City, and most of my family still knows me as Cynthia, which is why I use all three of my names, Ashton Cynthia Clark. I'm a performance storyteller, and I tell personal narratives, stories about my life. I started in see, 2019. And most of my stories are about, I'll say, defining moments in my life, including several that reference my Jamaican heritage. And you can find some of my stories and other readings at my YouTube channel, which is Ashton Cynthia Clark. I'm going to read a portion of a story that I wrote a few years ago, but it came back to mind when I was listening to the song Afro, which is sung by Erica Badu. And in that song, she says, "Pick out your Afro, baby, because it's flat on one side. And you said you were going to take me to see Wu-Tang, baby. So I braided my hair. Yes, I did. Cornroll and everything, baby. Well, you changed your mind and said we wasn't going, but my mama saw you there." I was 8 years old, plopped, cross-legged on the linoleum floor of our apartment between my mother's knees. She was an expert at combing and braiding my hair really quickly, but still carefully, making sure that all of the parts were straight. Mommy said that when I was really little, I had Indian hair. I mean, that's what we called it, like the actors on television that we used to call Indians, the way their long braids flew in the wind when they rode their horses. Well, my hair wasn't like that anymore. My hair was puffy, woolly, and my braids stayed put, even when I hung upside down on the monkey bars. But mommy's hands on my head felt so dreamy. Tight curlicues of hair at my neck and my temples began to relax under her brush. But I was ready to go outside and play, so I started squirming around. Mommy gently pressed her knees against my shoulders to encourage me to keep still. Her knees were darker than the rest of her skin, just like mine, like naughty black scuffs on my best Buster Brown shoes. And I was always scraping at my knees, trying to get the dark off. My two best friends, Linda and Jane, had come to pick me up. Now, our trio tripped together all the time, trading Barbie dolls, winning the best parts in the school plays. We were even the best artists in the class, and the other girls were always asking one of us to draw a picture for them, usually a fashion model looking figure with a dangerously tiny waist and long flowing hair. We all lived in the same New York City housing project, so Linda and Jane promised they'd wait right outside my apartment until I was ready to go. Mommy snapped a brightly colored plastic clip to the end of each of my braids, and I thought that it all went pretty fast. But when I went to find my friends, they were gone. The next time I saw Linda, I asked her, "So, how come you guys left me?" She stared down at the jagged cracks on the pavement. My eyes traveled down as well until I was staring at Linda's knees, her plump, pinkish knees standing out below blue Bermuda shorts. "Well, Jane said we shouldn't wait. She said you would take forever because your hair is..." And then Linda hesitated as if unsure of her next word. "Nappy? And your mommy had to put grease in it." Huh. Linda and Jane were both white. I was Black. But it was the first time our difference made a difference. Thank you.
Where am I? Thank you. Oh my gosh. Hold on. There we go. Had to make myself pop back up. Thank you, Ashton. And while I'm listening to your story, and it makes me think about storytelling in general. And I wrote down, without stories, what do we have as people? And stories allow us to, and maybe we can discuss this in our discussion section, but stories allow us to learn from each other, to grow as community, to experience each other. And I always tell my students when we're writing, and we're supposed to write what we know, right? And how do we know something? We learn it, we communicate, we come together, we come to these cool virtual open mics and in-person open mics when we have them, and we're able to share us. And I don't know if there's anything better than that. I haven't found it yet, but I'm glad that you're here finally.
Thank you, Matthew. That's perfect description of storytelling. Yes.
Thank you. And as a little intermission while we wait to bring in the next speaker here, I want to remind everybody, find us on all of the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Of course, that's where we are. The website, www.nervousghostpress.org. Submit your work to us for the anthology, The Waiting Room. It will be super awesome. Stay tuned for other announcements, other events along the throughout the years, throughout the months, community events, and so on. If there's something that we can do to work with anybody to build our community, that's why we exist. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're hoping to do. If anybody wants to send me a whole bunch of how to be a social media something, I'm open to it. I suck at social media, obviously. Take a look at our stuff. You'll be like, oh my gosh, when's the last time you posted? Yeah, that's me. I'm open to it. Just kidding. I don't know. Maybe one of these days. Who knows? Anyways. All right. So the next speaker we have is Erica Blumfield.
Hello, thank you. My name is Erica Blumfield, and I'm a storyteller in the Los Angeles area and a teacher. I teach reading and creative writing to elementary school kids. And I'm going to read two short stories, true stories. They're 99 seconds each, so like under a minute 40 each. Okay. I had just learned that a friend had died suddenly, and I'm feeling very sad. But I'm at the elementary school where I work as a teacher and a tutor. And I have a new student, a new tutoring student that day. So I have to keep it together. I'm standing just outside my classroom door when I see her. This little peanut of a girl skipping down the hallway, a happy sight. A child skipping. They're so carefree, so unburdened. And I'm immediately struck by my student Anna's intense thirst for knowledge. It's as though it was her last day to learn. When we take a break, Anna shares with me, you know, I have a disease and I almost died, but my mom gave me half her liver and I survived. She continued, teacher, do you believe in heaven? Which I don't, but that is not the answer she needs. And I don't like to lie. She's waiting. And what comes to me is this experience that I had in an art installation. And I explained to Anna, it was amazing. I was in this small pitch black room all alone. And at first I was scared, but within seconds, these endless tiny white lights came on and I was surrounded by mirrors. And in the mirror, my own image became smaller and smaller and smaller until I was one of those tiny lights. And as I explained to Anna, I'm remembering the peace that I had felt in that room. And I tell her, yes, I suppose I do. And Anna says, thank goodness. And I say, yes, thank goodness. Okay, so that was the first one. Thank you. In the midst of a bipolar mania, I quit my high-end hotel concierge job and I begin wandering the streets day and night, barefoot in my kimono, telepathically communicating with the sun and moon. Mania begins beautifully, like being inside a Van Gogh painting, but psychosis, not eating, not sleeping, wandering the streets all day and night. It takes its toll. It's like being ripped from earth, trapped in the pages of Dante's Inferno. My friend of 15 years has left me a number of messages, which I have not returned. She goes out looking for me in my Los Angeles neighborhood, and she finds me filthy, layered in the soot of the city, and smelling like onion and trash, lying down in the middle of traffic. She convinces me to go with her to her apartment. She makes me chamomile tea with honey. She runs a bath, running the water till it's perfectly warm. She lathers a sponge and gently washes my body, carefully cuts and cleans under my fingernails, and tenderly shampoos and combs my matted hair. She treats me like I am her treasured child, because that is what you do for people you love. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And the tenderness, and that's always a word that strikes me because it's not a word often used. I think to describe so much of us and our experiences and who we are and how we share and everything. But tender is such a strong word, but it's also a very tender word, and I don't know how else to describe it. But that one, and when you spoke about the first story about teaching, and it made me think about how, as teachers, and the strength of teachers, and we're supposed to be honest with students, right? And yet sometimes they ask us questions, and we're going to be honest, and we're not, because we're either protecting them, we're protecting something, and it's just kind of this it's ripping at our brains because I have to be honest with everything, but don't ask me that question because I'm not going to share you. I'm like, oh, I can't do it. And yet it's very solid. And I think the foundation that makes us, and that why we love it, and why I think I can tell you give a lot of passion and put in a lot of passion with your students, comes off in the stories. And I was thinking of stories again, and thank you both for sharing stories, and how I think of a lot of stories that I was never told because maybe I was too young, maybe it wasn't. No, maybe the individual was older now. They're not supposed to tell stories from them when they were young and reckless and dumb. It's inappropriate. But I want to know all the stories. I want all the bad stories. I want the good stories because that's you, right? We are all of it together and combined. And so stories are really so powerful. And I thank you again for sharing with all of us.
Thank you. Beautifully put, Matthew.
All right, and our next speaker is Vin. And so, Vin, hop on, share a little bit about yourself if you feel like it. Of course, you don't have to. And thank you for joining us, and the virtual floor is yours.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Vin. My artist name is Bozozo. And my deal is I just moved here to California this year from New York. It's my first year out of school, and I have just kind of been trying to establish myself here and find community and stuff. And a really great way I've done that actually is through work. I work at My Place Cafe, and that's shout out. You guys should all go to My Place all the time. It's great there, and there's this I don't know, I wasn't expecting it, but there's this really great sense of community and love, and that's where I got connected with Nervous Goes. My coworker Jesse hooked me up, which was really cool of him. Yeah, but I've been writing songs for a few weeks, and I want to put out some music, maybe an album or something. But I just have a few songs floating around, and I'm gonna play one right now that the lyrics don't have much of a through line narrative, but it's sort of um mosh podge of emotions from the past couple months, and just to me it's an uplifting song. I feel like I write a lot of songs that are about the sort of, I don't know, being defeated or struggling. But this one is like one of the only ones that feel uplifting to me. So yeah, I like it for that reason. I'll play it now. The grain like a ball of yarn and love that melts like tires on hot asphalt. I'm addicted to the feeling that you get when the plane bumps and blood rushes through your body. I was busy looking all around this town for you, but I found, I was busy looking all around this town, but I found that you and me are one and the same. Nobody knows the things you've been through. Only you. Why do we need validation anyway? Why do we stare into flames when we know that they burn us? But we sit around having a campfire. Gotta love how dark the woods are, and I don't look at the stars, and I don't even go to the park, and I never go to the bar. What's up with that? I was busy looking all around this town for you, but I found, I was busy looking all around this town, but I found that you and me are one in the same. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nervous Ghost.
Thank you, Vin. We appreciate it, and I can't give away my secret yet, but I'm figuring out a way to put music inside of a book. And so submit the music, and then it's not going to be like a book and it plays, not one of those, but I'm working on it. It's going to happen. I could crack the code. Also, we're Brian's our audio engineer, and one of these days he's going to be the one that does all this, so there's no scratchiness. I think that's me. I think I'm the one that makes the scratchiness. But we want to build a studio, so come through, record, work together. I finally bought my mixer. I've been wanting to write a musical for like 7 years, and I want to sit down and actually write it. I have an idea, and I might speak about this later on during our Q&A, but for some of us, I think we know there's this thing we want to write about. We know what it is. We know what the story is, but we just won't open the door. And I want to open the door, and all of you walk into that room with me. But thank you, Vin. Thank you for sharing, and definitely appreciate. Definitely submit your work. And so, our final speaker, everybody, and right before our Q&A, get your questions ready. All the other speakers, get your questions ready. I have some questions. Sometimes my questions are, maybe they're a little too heavy. I got to kind of tone them down. But if you don't ask questions, just like to my students, I got to ask questions, and you're not going to like mine. And our final speaker, everyone, give a warm welcome to Anne-Marie Wells.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. I'm Anne-Marie. I am a faculty member at the Community Literature Initiative through the Sims Library of Poetry. I was a student with them and worked on putting together a collection called Survived By. It takes into account all of the journey that I went on as my dad fell ill, and then after he passed away, and healing from that grief. And I was able to finish that collection, and now I have come back as a faculty member to help teach the course that helps poets just like everybody here put together a full-length manuscript and publish it. And so these are a few of my poems that appear in my full-length book, Survived By. The first one's called The Water's Gone. The drought came with the volcano. Street lamps frowned through the ash made dark. Homes turned into hills with chimneys peeking out the summits. And we hummed as we trudged through the wreckage until our hums turned into songs. We didn't know what else to do. Tears wouldn't water the grass. Cries wouldn't call the birds home. Thank you. My second poem today is called Gravestone Flowers. I paced my father's hometown cemetery as he pushed and pulled his lawnmower through the overgrown grass, planted marigolds at strangers' graves. I ripped dandelions with the savagery of a child who was Anne with an E and who pretended to be the one from Green Gables, who didn't care to understand what it meant to be dead. I held the bouquet like a bride and trampled the wild blades, wondering why my dad cared at all to tend the plots of those decaying for a century. Now, with a longer life of collected memories, I know he'd always been the man to shovel his neighbor's driveway in December, to walk at night with light bulbs in his pockets to replace anyone's burned out porch lamps while they slept. And he couldn't let his parents' bones lie in a graveyard replete with Jumanji canopies taking over the signs that someone once inhaled this town, that someone once exhaled this town. Now I adorn my father's grave with seashells, arrange them in a circle around a ceramic frog. I carry his funeral flowers like a baby in my arms, lay one at a time across barren graves near his. And maybe visiting strangers will be touched to see a lily, even desiccated from the sun atop their loved one's grave. Maybe this was my father's sentiment too. Maybe he thought not of those who passed on, but of those who would pass by. They would know someone cared enough. Or maybe they would think it was their ancestors' way of saying hi from the other side. And maybe when you think about it, it was. Thank you. I have one last poem. I think everybody is thinking about the war that's happening and the occupation that's happening in Ukraine right now, and it's been infiltrating my dreams. And this was a recollection of one of them. It's called Protection from the Rain. The town was under siege by sniper fire in my dream, and I fled, ashamed at my own weak-heartedness for escaping without the dog. 12 years old, 8 teeth missing, limped gait, the empty leash lifeless behind her, lost amidst the hurricane of running innocence. Pulsed with cowardice, my legs broke for the lawn where you're buried. Even though you are dead, even in my dreams, even though your stone, flush with the grass, brought no cover from the metal rain, I still searched for protection by your side, lying crescent around your grave, my hands stretched wide, read the carved letters of your name. Face in the dirt, I prayed for the dog to live, bargained for her death to be quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And as far as dreams, I think dreams are so crucial just to either solving things or working through whatever we're going through. I have a lot of nightmares all the time. I don't know why. I don't know where they come from. But I always try to write them down or text immediately, whatever, if there's a pen in front of me or a phone or something. And there's always typos, but it's such a great tool for us. And your collection, Survived By, I think captures a lot of what many of us go through as far as grief is concerned, or just questions. And I have a lot of questions around that topic. And the Gravestone Flowers, those who would pass by, hums into songs, tears don't water grass, all of those lines, I'm just like, oh my gosh, right here, I feel it right here. And it's such a cool way. And to bring it back a little bit to Vin and community also, so much of what this does is allows us to heal, or to begin the healing process, or continue the healing process through our shared traumas, our pain, our happiness, our excitement, our frustration, and everything else that we have. We can put it into this thing on paper, and it just translates almost flawlessly across everywhere. And all of us, and I'm gonna have us all on the screen in a little bit, we're all one now, whether you like it or not. And you can leave, you can never email me again, but too bad, because you were here and we're a group now. We are the March 19th Green Water Collective. I'm gonna write that down. That sounded pretty good. But thank you, Anne-Marie. And as I work on setting us up for our Q&A, think about some questions. I think I'm almost here. One last reminder for everybody, connect with us on social media. Ask us questions. Say hello. I'm always down to speak with anybody. Here we go. There we go. All right, I'm back. All right. Now we're all here. We have Ghost Dennis down at the bottom. So don't mind him. He's just looking there like a little nervous ghost. And so I have a question for everybody. It's kind of the first question to get us started. And I'll try and answer it first. I think that usually works out. And this question is, how often do you experiment with a genre that you're uncomfortable with? And not a genre that you're not familiar with, a genre you're uncomfortable with. You just can't do it, you hate it, it doesn't work. And as far as my writing, I'm not so comfortable with stories just because I have to add more. I prefer poetry. I prefer to be a little more metaphorical and flowery and kind of like riddles and make people guess what I'm trying to say. But in stories, I feel like I have to really explain what's going on as far as the characters and their relationships and so on. And I don't like to do that in real life. And so I sure as hell don't want to do it in stories. But every once in a while, I'll start writing something and then I get all frustrated and angry. I'm turning this into a poem instead. But for all of you, is there times where you're like, you know what? I need to write this freaking memoir. It bugs me, but I gotta do it.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I have a variety of different writing that I do. I write plays as well. I am working on a novel. I wrote a memoir. I definitely struggle with prose over poetry. I do it anyway, of course. I don't know if I necessarily experiment. I'm not sure what experimenting with it would look like. But I do work at it, and I have, my comrades that I send pages to for feedback. When I was working on my memoir, it was so painful to work on. There's all that self-doubt, all the fear, all the this isn't good, so why am I doing it, that I actually made a contract with one of my friends. So I had to send her 2 chapters of my book every 2 weeks, or I had to pay her $100 cash. And I was working as a nanny for $10 an hour and living in a pony barn that was refurbished into like not even a studio apartment. So $100 was like a hefty price. And then I finished my memoir in just a couple months. So that's how I made it through the challenges.
That's a great way to motivate yourself.
Well, it's funny you should ask that question, Matthew. I've been attending a lot more poetry events, almost more than storytelling events, since around mid-pandemic, before I started to really get into doing storytelling online, and I was just attending stuff. And poetry is something that I never really had much of an interest in, but I thought, maybe this could add something to my writing. So lately I've been going to, a few poetry shows, and I actually yesterday participated in my first poetry workshop. And one of the assignments, the first assignment I begged off. I said, I can't do this because, writing even prose just on the spur of the moment is something I have a big challenge with. And so writing a poem, oh my gosh. But then the second one was to do a hybrid work. And she asked us to do a poem and a drawing. And I had experimented with this little haiku a few months ago that it was really talking about the first time that I went on a camping trip. And I said, well, let me start with that. And then I said, oh, I can't draw, but I tried. And I'm going to put it on the screen and maybe you'll be able to see it. And when the leader of the group said, oh my God, it's Bambi, I felt so relieved and gratified. And this was my little haiku. See if we can see that. So anyway, I'm trying more and more to investigate other genres and see how I can make my storytelling pop more and be closer to my soul. Music also is a thing that I love, so then I might be getting in contact with you to see how we can use your music with my stories. So, thanks.
I'm gonna follow you on that. Drawing, to me, that was a masterpiece, your Bambi. I am not even the queen of stick figures, okay? So you talk about a medium that I don't know that I avoid. It's my son draws. My son's an artist, but I can't draw at all. But I'm an admirer. So yeah.
Awesome. I think being able to, even if we can't, just throw paint on something, because so much of when we write and we tell stories, I know we don't see the colors, but we see something in our head, and we write the characters, or we write the line, or we think of an image and it appears, And then I notice when I try to recreate whatever I see in my head, either it doesn't happen at all or it's perfect. It's either one of the two. There's never a middle. It's either just hot garbage or it's perfect. And usually when it's horrible, it turns into something else. And it's cool because it's almost like instead of writing with your left hand, write with your right hand, and instead of your right hand, write with your left hand, and it changes how we think. It changes the speed. And so sometimes if there's something I can't quite get to, I'll try to do that. And it could be with painting like Ashton, it could be with admiring something and just getting out of where we're comfortable, because a lot of writing, a lot of art is not comfortable. We have to sing songs we don't want to sing about. We have to write the stories we really don't want to share, but have to share. And it works sometimes. It's awesome. Sometimes it's horrible. But I want to get to one more question and then a question from YouTube. And this question is for anybody. Jump in. This is kind of that heavy question I spoke about earlier. But we know, at least I know, there are doors, and I have nightmares about this one door. I know it's in the door, but I never open it. I always walk the other way. And do any of you, do you ever walk past the door? Do you look at it and you tell yourself, God, I know what's in that door, but you just don't open it? Or do you open it and run in and find the light? Or do you not turn the light on? Or do you open the door, turn on the light switch, and there's no light? Or do you just ignore the door completely?
I don't want to take over if someone who hasn't answered yet wants to answer.
I was gonna pop in.
Oh, go ahead.
You can go ahead, Anne Marie, if you want to share first. No? You know, I think that I am such a scaredy cat that I would not, I would ignore the door. I don't, it's because wait, that's what you asked, right? You asked if we had like a dream and you came to a door, would you open the door, walk and like see what's inside, or would you like run the other way? Yeah, I would run the other way, which brings me to an idea that I had for a children's book. But if someone who like I do like mental health advocacy and I'm a teacher, but like if you woke up so about a little kid who has anxiety, but they woke up one day and they were fearless, because I thought about that. Do you know what I mean? So then they could like see, it doesn't have to be like they're going to be jumping off cliffs, but it'll be like they can do things that are usually in their way. So I would say that my goal is to feel less scared. Maybe I'd peek in. What's in there? I'd call Ashton and be like, Ashton, there's a door. What do you think I should do? That's it.
Yeah, peek.
Okay.
And I think I would dally about the door, I just like try to see if there's any light coming in, and yeah, I'd hang out too.
I feel a little differently. In terms of like thinking about this more like as a metaphor for writing, and kind of the subjects where you're like, do I want to talk about it? I kind of go in with well, if I'm going to do it, fuck it. I burn down the door and I go in with a sword and I'm like, we're gonna get the lines out and just hope for the best. I write it as fast as possible because if I think too much, then I won't write it. I'll be like, no, I'm tapping out, say red and leave the scene. So sometimes you just have to go in guns blazing and be like, I'm writing it.
Yeah,
I was think. Oh, go ahead, Bo.
Okay. Yeah, I relate to that. I relate to that. I feel like with my art recently, it has been like the I don't know. I feel like I like open the door and then go in and then like collect like if in the room is like this room of difficult like painful emotions, I feel like I make like quick trips in to grab the emotions and then make like a song or a piece of art from them, and then I close it for a bit. But then I have like piece of art as as like a reminder, or like I don't know, this the idea, because sometimes being in the room, like, it really just sucks. So like you don't want to be in there, but like I have this like it's like you steal like a little diamond or something that reminds you, but it could be something that you find beautiful. So I feel like that's my interpretation of that.
I messed it up. I see what you mean. I was supposed to apply it to writing. I'm so spacey. Okay, I just want to say, when it comes to writing, though, I'm the opposite of like all my other silly fears of like heights and things like that. I walk right through the door and I'm like, whatever's there is there. And I'm just so happy that I can walk through that door when it comes to writing.
And I piggyback on Erica. I messed up too, and I think I live in that room even now. So yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm still going with I take a peek first because I'm very chicken about things. And sometimes I'm in terror of certain subjects and what it's going to bring up out of me, and still what other people's reactions are going to be. I have to get out of that, but I still find myself in that place. And, I can think of at least one instance where I didn't write a story. Um, I couldn't open that door. And hopefully that will change in the future. But right now, there are certain doors that are still shut and three locks on them, like in New York City apartments. So pray for me.
I was going to say something similar to Ashton, is that like it takes a lot for me to like cannonball into the pool or to just like run through the door. I need to like give myself a pep talk. I need to talk it out with my friends first. I need them to encourage me, tell me like what a goddess I am, and then I have to believe it. And then I have to do my power pose. And then instead of saying I'm nervous, I have to say I'm excited. I'm excited. I tell myself this is a good thing. And then I'm able to open the door. And as I'm opening the door, I'm like, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Discomfort is good. It builds character, it builds grit. And I have to like tell myself that over and over and over. I'm not a brave person. It like takes me a long time to build up my courage.
Yeah, I agree.
That is me getting into the car to drive somewhere I've never been to before. I'm like, it's fine. You will find a parking spot. You'll be okay. It's like, that's the thing, is like, oh my God, merging on the freeway. And then how do I park? Because now I work from home and my ability to park has completely deteriorated. It was not great when I had it, when I was driving, but now it's really, don't park near me at Target.
I hate driving somewhere new. Like you have to slow down. I don't know. You have to turn off the radio. You have to slow down. Everybody's looking, even if there's no one there. It's just it's the worst. And
Yeah, nobody breathe. I need to hear Siri give me the directions.
Exactly. But all right, so there's a question here in YouTube for Ashton and Erica, and then we'll expand it to everybody else who wants to jump in. It says, when you write your personal stories and when you're storytelling, is there a pattern you follow, a rhyme or rhythm, so to speak? And we can expand this to everybody. When you're writing anything, as far as the memoirs, the poetry, the songs, and it goes into that place that is personal, do you follow something? Or let's say you're writing something that's not so much a personal vendetta against the universe, and you're just throwing it out there, you're throwing it on paper, you're letting it just fall where it may, versus a very personal, important, specific type of topic.
I can speak on that first if you like, Erica. Um, my rhyme, as you put it, is to think about something that made a big change in me personally. Um, for example, even though I just did well, maybe that's not the best example. There was a story that I did a while ago about losing my luggage at the airport. Now, that was the incident that kicked it off. And it was funny because I was on the way to New York City to see my family, and I told them about this incident, and we all got a big laugh out of it. But after I related it to them and started thinking, could this be, a narrative that I could share with other people? I realized that I had changed from the pre that incident to after that incident. Without giving away too much of the story, because I'd love you to see it on my YouTube channel. I always considered myself a very open person, a person who's has been around and associated with and been friends with people of all races and cultures and nationalities. And what happened with this incident of the luggage, it triggered something in me that I had no idea existed. And I found myself thinking very negative, xenophobic thoughts about people. And when I realized I was doing that, I was so ashamed. Um, so in the beginning, I thought I was one way. And at the end, I realized that despite my best intentions, I could go in the totally opposite direction, and that it was something that I had to be aware of in myself, and all of us, I'm sure, do, that we don't succumb to, let's say, baser instincts because of something that happens to us. So basically, that's my procedure. What was the incident? How was I before, and how did I change? And can this make an impact on other people? So.
And and now should I go? Or did you want to say something, Matt? Or should I go? I should go. Yeah? Okay. I'm messing up the YouTube channel. Sorry. Okay. So I'll talk on 2 points. I'll kind of talk about structure and then the emotional aspect of it. Like, I have a definite structure that if you know my stories, you would, like they're structured similarly. I'm very linear, and I kind of have a classic take on storytelling with the rising action and the conflict, which all stories should have, but like the tragic hero fall and then a build back to, in my stories, to like a survival, like overcoming something really challenging. And within that structure, most of my stories are about mental health, exploring my experience with bipolar. I ended up having nowhere to live, so I was homeless, and it was like this long story. But I had to fight really hard and survive some stuff. And then I like to tell these stories to offer hope and break stigma and hopefully change people's minds, and so that people feel that like every life is salvageable, because I think sometimes people seem so far gone, like will they ever be able to come back? And yeah, so basically that's what I do. I have like a classic structure for the stories, and I like to delve into my personal experiences, and then hopefully by sharing my journey, it'll help others on theirs and open eyes.
Awesome.
Thinking about the sorry, Matt. Thinking about this question, for me, the kind of rhyme rhythm patterns, I don't work in rhyme. I'm very much a free verse poet, and I don't generally work with form either. But in terms of rhythm, I just noticed this working on the editing of the forthcoming book, that I do tend to have every now and then there will be these longer lines that are, a like Oxford comma moment, where it's in threes and then it's a short sentence. So it'll be da 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 da, and then each poem ends. There's always like a lot of space, and I pause for a long time, and then final punchy line, and that's kind of the pattern most of my poems fall into.
For me, I like playing with poetry. So it's a personal experience. All of my poems are really personal. And so I think I go by music and heart and sensations. And so it spills out, but I will bake a poem for a long time, meaning it'll ruminate inside of me. I will write it and then I set it to the side and then let it bake for like 6 more months and go back and visit it. And sometimes I will make it into a formatted poem like a villanelle or a sonnet. And then, it depends on what the poem wants, because once I get it out after I baked it, the poem tells me what it wants. So I don't have a particular pattern. I just enjoy engaging with the poem.
You know what, Romaine, very, very quickly you went, and I 100% agree. And you said let it bake, and in my head I let it marinate. And I mean, it's the same thing, but it's a cool idea to let the poem just sit there instead of, or the work or whatever, instead of crumpling it up and throwing it away. Just get it out of our faces
Yeah.
and our bodies, and let it do what it needs to do. The same way with making bread, right? You have to just leave the bread alone. I'm not good at making I'm good at making pizza. I'm not good at letting the bread rise. I'm impatient.
Yeah.
But if we let it do what it needs to do, and then, like you said, what it wants. And I think this is one of the most difficult things for so many is, and it was a very hard thing to realize, that my poems, my work, it's not me. It's its own entity. It exists on the paper 100% outside of myself. And sometimes I'll write something that I wanted because I thought it was cool or there was sentimental value, but it means nothing to the piece. And the piece has to tell us what it needs, not what we want, what it wants, what it needs to survive on the paper by itself without us there. And
Yeah.
it's so difficult. But
Yeah.
a great question and great points. And Anne-Marie, do you want me to read your question or do you want to ask it?
Well, actually, I wanted to chime in on the last question.
Oh yeah, do that first.
Because I say that I let my poems incubate like bird eggs, and that they need time to hatch. And in terms of like a pattern or rhyme or rhythm, like I know that famous quote of like, oh, I write when inspiration hits, it just hits at every morning at 9 a.m. or something like that. And it's like, to say that you should be writing on a regular schedule, doing your morning pages. And I find I write my best work when something like strikes me and it's like, I have to go write this down right now. And then poems where it's like, oh, I want to write a poem about XYZ, that it comes out more as like a writing exercise. It turns into like a piece that I don't actually use for a manuscript or that I submit to a literary journal. It's more of like a writing craft practice to keep me more like doing, like going to the gym versus like doing a choreography, right? You have to like go to the Zumba class in order to stay fit, but like that's not like the performance you give on stage. Yeah, I wish that I were more disciplined in my writing craft, but I usually write poems as they, like if it's 3 a.m. I once wrote a 1-act play at 3 in the morning because I dreamt of it and I had to get up right then and write it down. But then, that also causes me stress because after I write a good poem, then I'm like, I'm never gonna write a poem again. I'm never going to have another idea. But of course, that doesn't happen. There's always another poem. There's always another story. So the question that I was asking earlier was, I was just wondering how everybody's creative practice changed with the pandemic, if it changed. How did being virtual or being cooped up in your house, how did it change your writing practice, if it did?
It changed mine a lot. For the first about year of the pandemic, I was unemployed. So I had aside from, searching for the jobs and working on my certificates and my education, I had a lot of time. So that's when I actually wrote a majority of the forthcoming book, because I just had all of this time. So for about 3 or 4 months, it was just every day reading other people's work, just consuming as much poetry as I could to get in a poetic mind state, and just, hitting the wall with the muse and the theme of the book and seeing what would kind of come out of that. And even now that I am employed, thank God, I still make time and do a similar practice of reading, other people's collections, other people's books, literary journals, watching previous open mics that I did not attend on the Nervous Ghost YouTube channel, just finding a way to engage with the poetry community, because that's what we do as artists, and we owe that to each other, of course, and we should. But that's become a big part of my practice, has been getting inspired by other people, whether it's a word choice that they used. Someone used the word tender and I was like, gotta go write something. So that's been my process, and I had a lot more time, so I could actually write a full length book.
When there's like dead air, I'm like, let me just go ahead and jump in. So for me, it didn't change my writing practice all that much, because I just write all the time, or a lot of the time. I won't say all the time, but a lot of the time. But what it did for me was it helped me build community, because even this, I'm not a night driver, and oh my goodness, I could so relate, Amanda, when you were talking about just driving and parking. And so there's a myriad of places I want to go and listen to people and be there. And I wasn't able to before. And I was with Zoom, and I was in a lot of workshops. At one time, I did 2 workshops at once in the summer. And so it opened my world up that way. But yeah, that's a good question.
I totally relate to that too. Um, I I had been saying for a really long time, like practically forever, that I wanted to write my TV pilot for my television show idea that I had about, based on my experiences with my journey with bipolar. And I never could do it. And so I finally had the stimulus check, and I took 2 really helpful classes, and I finally wrote my TV pilot. So unfortunately, unfortunately it didn't match my vision, but I have it. And now this goes back to like process. I'm trying to go back and work on it. But I found also community. As soon as the pandemic hit, I was like, oh no, I'm a single woman living alone, and storytelling is my life. Like going in the community and seeing everyone is right, Ashton, like everyone's so great. And so I like leaned into the Zooms and made friends like all over the country now. And I auditioned for a NAMI event, and I got to go speak at a wonderful fundraiser. So I just leaned into it and felt like really grateful for the moments, like, because I was like, okay, this is what's saving me. My writing is what's saving me. And otherwise, I'm a goner. So yeah, that was wow, that's hard. But that's true. It anchors me. It saved me.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, just to I'm sorry, go ahead, Matthew.
Oh, I was just saying I agree.
I was going to say, just to piggyback quickly on what Erica said, when the pandemic struck and I was home alone, it's like I wasn't going anywhere and I wasn't doing anything. And maybe a lot of that was my own fault, but there were no new events for me to build stories around. And I found that I was spending more time going back and digging into past events and how those have shaped me is, probably the biggest change that it made in uh, at least my writing, if not my writing habits, but what I produced.
I wanted to go, I don't know if everybody talked, if everybody responded, because I had like a series of questions, little mini questions. I took notes as you guys were writing. And when you said you had to go back into, you know, uh, your past and pull out for stories, your story with the knees, what made you decide to focus on, the hair? You were talking about the hair, but I remember you describing your knees and her knees, and what made you decide to use that body part to hone in on? I thought that was interesting.
Wow. I think, well, first of all, remembering that I was sitting on the floor and mommy was trying to hold me in place with her knees, which was not very comfortable. She was sort of squeezing against my shoulders with her knees. And, so I could look over and notice how her skin was darker there. So it was her action that prompted me to look. And so remember that. And then when I'm later talking to the friend who left me behind and noticing that she didn't have that, her knees were like the same color as the rest of her. That was a weird memory that it popped up like that, but that's how that went. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And now it explains the intimacy of the knees. I get that connection now. So, yeah. And then Erica, the mirror gets smaller in your story, and I thought it might be symbolic of the ego, but I wasn't sure.
I love that. I think it could be because there was this one part I don't have this in the story because it's funny, but it kind of pulls you out of the story. But while I was in that room, like I'm having this like really peaceful moment, right? And I'm losing myself, like, and then I get a glimpse back at my butt, and I was like, yeah, even into infinity, you're gonna bring this big ass. And I thought, how like maybe I should not, I don't know. It always pushed me out of the story. But so I think in a way, you're right. Like it was this loss of ego, just complete purity, no nothingness, but yet this sense of unity, like that we're not alone. It may be this kind of universal energy force, like these lights, like our souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I didn't know if that was on point or not, but that's beautiful.
Oh,
And I
cool.
like that you didn't use the word heaven. You described that experience. That was so freaking awesome. Then, dang, what got you interested in creating music?
Well, I was kind of like a musical kid, I guess. I don't know, just gravitated to it. I think the reason why I started and it stuck with me is I just think like as an art form, it is closest to like how my brain works. Like I sort of like I'm not a very type A person. Like I usually think in like very like chaotic ways, and or not always chaotic, but like I would say like abstract. And I don't know. I love music because it's like an immediate. For me, it's like immediate. Like if you sit down and like start playing a song, and I think poetry is 100% the same way. I think like, or at least relating to like how I write lyrics, it's the same like immediacy. You could but yeah, you could sit down and record a song in a few hours, and it could have like this. That could be the length that you're experiencing an emotion, and like while you're, I guess that's sort of what I meant by like going into the room. But then like sometimes you come out of it and it's like, wow, like this is a really abstract, like I can't even really just, you can't even really describe what it is. Sometimes I listen to music and I'm like, what even, like why, how does, it's like magic, I don't know. But I would say that that's why I gravitated to it. Yeah.
Okay. I have two more questions. Do we have enough time for my? Okay, great. I'm gonna go to Amanda. You have a book coming out, and I was so curious. I want to know the theme of your book, and yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that.
I was so happy when I saw that comment in our chat. I was like, hee hee hee. the theme is periods, menstruation, monthly menses, and being on the rag.
Nice.
It is rock and roll, protest, anger, a little bit gross, and at times romantic. And I'm really excited for it to come out. I was so happy.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking forward to reading it, or reading some of the poems in it. And then my last question is for Anne Marie. Oh my gosh, the war poem. Dang, girl, the dog. And how did you decide to get inside? You were going to get inside of that war and bring us with you. How did you do that? And what came to your mind? What was your process?
That was actually a dream that I had, or a nightmare that I had, that I woke up from. And it was one of those moments where it was grab the phone next to the nightstand. I'm crying. I'm typing it out to myself, just like the events. And there, of course, were other parts of it that didn't make it into the poem. The poem is a selection of, you know, the parts that I remember and the sentiments that I was going through. It's more of a reflection of just like being bombarded with war imagery and the, you know, the terror that those individuals are experiencing right now. But you know, we're exposed to that like pretty regularly. You know, Ukraine is not a unique situation. We were witnessing violence when Israel was attacking Palestine and there was a conflict there. We've witnessed, you know, even within the pandemic, we've witnessed so much violence on the news. And I think, you know, it just gets embedded. Well, I don't want to speak for other people. It gets embedded in my psyche. I know for myself, I can't watch scary movies or TV shows, anything that has bloody violence, because I will have nightmares. And it's not necessarily that I'm watching it terrified, it's just that those images get
Yes.
into my brain.
Mhm.
And I remember my mom telling me once, when I had, you know, my girlfriends over, I was 13 for a sleepover, and we're watching all of the Poltergeists. We rented them from the movie store, and we're renting all of the Poltergeists. And I remember her saying something along the lines of like, well, remember, whatever you see, you can't unsee. Like, just keep that in mind. Whatever you see, you can't unsee. And then I wish that I had not seen so much of what I saw, right? And so that just like kind of always stuck with me, of like, I don't have to be cool. I can just not watch scary movies, or like take in kind of like scary stuff. But then I take in the news, and then I take in you know, the Facebook newsreel or the Instagram newsreel. It's all flooding us all the time. And I think I was just impacted by it, so that my subconscious brain was letting me know that it was impacting me. And, you know, whatever that ends up being, one of my favorite quotes is take your broken heart, make it into art, but like also take your fear, make it into art. And take your pain, take whatever frustrations or bombardments or embarrassment or stress, and make it into your art. And so that was the poem that came out of that experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
I do have one more question. Because I was going to ask Erica, from your poem, the mental health poem, the poem about psychosis, and do you have a series of poems about, mental health, or I shouldn't say mental health, about your personal experience with
Well,
it?
you can say mental health. Yeah, you can say that.
Well, I was making it broad and I wanted to keep it specific to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for us to always, yeah. I hear what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I have stories that are from, 5 minutes to 8-10 minutes. I in the form that I do storytelling, I think like 8 to 8 minutes is like a sweet spot. But I've just been given 15 minutes. So I'm expanding a story that was 8 minutes. And it was really cool to get the feedback of like, but when you say you were in this recovery home for 2 years, but then you go to this, like, well, what happened? And like just stretch moments out. So basically, I have 5 to 10 minute stories, and they're centered around different experience that I had. Like this one was with my friend. One of my other stories is about when I was living at a recovery home for the homeless with mental illness, and how this man, I had prepared this meal, and I was so depressed, but he like exclaims how wonderful the meal is. And it was this like real turning point for me. And anyway, you can, yeah. So wait, I answered it right? Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay,
You have more stories that deal with mental health and your journey through mental health. And I want to thank you for your honesty and sharing your journey. And I want to hear more. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So those are all my questions.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody, for sharing. I know it's difficult sometimes to discuss with each other, but it's what it really does prove. I think if this is some kind of giant social experiment, that art brings all of us together in such powerful ways. And if you took a snapshot of all of us, we're all different. We all come from different places, different experiences, and yet right now we are all the same. And we're together. And we hurt and have been hurt and have hurt others, and we have been through things, and we're healing and growing and all this other stuff. And the fear, like Marianne said, using our fears into art, and our traumas and our pain, and turning all the ugly stuff into something so perfect, immaculate, and beautiful is what drives us, what motivates us, and is what proves again that this matters, and this can't stop, and we can't stop having these types of events. We can't stop writing onto pieces of paper, or on our computer, or on our phones, or on our arms, or whatever we write on, because it has to get out of us into the universe, so that other people can watch and listen and go, holy shit, I feel the same way. Wait a minute, my words matter? The hell yeah they do, and you better speak them. And so thank you, everybody. Thank you for everybody who's listening. Again, remember, connect with us, email, ask me just how to sign up. If you ask me to sign up, the answer is yes. I don't think I've told anybody no yet. I'm sure there has been. If I don't think so, probably, who knows. But anyways, follow us, email always, discuss, ask questions. I'm going to end the live stream. Everybody on Zoom will still be on Zoom. We can say goodbye. We can say hello, all these cool things. But everybody watching, everybody who will watch in the future, thank you again. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you in person for Poetry Month next month and beyond. And I hope you all, again, are happy, healthy, warm, and we'll see you next time.